Hello everyone, welcome to Dover Paranormal's Paranormal Tech Talk. This is Season 1, Episode 3. Today's discussion we're going to be talking about the Kinect sensor. Both versions, version 1 and version 2. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of how it's used on paranormal investigations and some of the issues that we run into with this device during investigations, just kind of briefly want to go over the history. 2011, when the first version was released, there were 8 million sensors that were sold within 60 days. The first version of the Kinect sensor uses a structured light to achieve depth mapping, and basically what it does is it is accomplished by projecting a pattern of light and analyzing the changes in the pattern of light that's projected onto the objects in the environment. Now, the second version of the Kinect was released 3 years later in 2014, and it initially shipped with the Xbox One entertainment system. Now, there's been a lot of improvements over the original Kinect sensor. It's capable of recording more than 300,000 dimensional data points with a frequency of 30 hertz. Now, this is equal to 9 million measurements per second. Okay, this is an incredible amount of information that this device is processing. Now, unlike the light-structured technology that was used in the first one, it has a laser-based time-of-flight technology which sends pulses of infrared light from an array of laser emitters to calculate the distance based on how long it takes that light to bounce off the target and return to the camera. So those are the main differences between the Kinect as far as, the history of them. Now, I can get into a little more specifics so you can understand the differences between the two as far as the leaps in the technology. The Kinect version 1, the color, the RGB camera, had a 640 by 480 pixels at 30 frames a second. The Kinect version 2 is 1920 by 1080, which is full HD at 30 frames a second. So that was a huge leap. The depth camera on the original Kinect was 320 by 240 pixels at 30 frames a second. The depth on the Kinect version 2 is 512 by 424 at 30 frames a second. So there again, it was another decent leap. Now, the field of view was also improved. The Kinect version 1 had 57 degrees by 43 degrees, and the Kinect version 2 had a 70 degree by 60 degree field of view. The max range on the original Kinect was 13 feet, and the distance, or the range of the Kinect version 2 is 15 feet. So it was just a slight improvement in distance. And of course, I mentioned the different types of lasers, or excuse me, the different types of lights that are used. Is the Kinect version 1 is structured light versus Kinect version 2, which is a time of flight. Now we can talk a little bit about how it's used in paranormal research and how I use it in paranormal research over the years, and some of the issues that I kind of ran into. The first one we're going to talk about is there's a serious issue with the algorithm on the Kinect version 1, and it causes a lot of, you've seen it on television, all these little stick figures locking on to random objects and people claiming them to be ghosts and whatnot. That's just simply just a bad algorithm. The software runs independently of the hardware, and there's some glitches in the software that cause it to lock on things. Now, I've actually done comparisons, side-by-side comparisons in my kitchen here, and I'll show you this video. And basically what happens is I have both cameras running. One runs on USB 1, one runs on USB 2. So side by side, I'm standing in the kitchen and I have lock-ons, stick figures locking onto my refrigerator on the Kinect version 1, where right beside it the Kinect version 2 sees absolutely nothing. This is just simple, poor algorithms, errors in software. It's nothing more than that. Now, another interesting point to this that I wanted to talk about is if you look at the science and just go back to school and think in science class, Now we discussed how these work, and most of the videos you see online are the first versions of the Kinect that have the structured light or the dots that you see on these cameras. Now if you think about light and what it is and how it works and how you interact with light, there's a question that's pretty obvious that is raised, and that is if a ghost or a spirit is supposed to be energy, you know, according to the latest hypotheses that I'm aware of, there's no way that energy can interfere with light. Now when I say interfere, I mean through, I'm talking about things like emissions, refractions, reflections, diffraction. You have to be able to interfere with the light for that structured light sensor to hit something and come back to the camera. And energy can't do that. So that's the big elephant in the room. So the thought that this Kinect can look into the environment and quote unquote detect a ghost or spirit and put a stick figure on it, it's just not going to work that way. Only because, like I said, you have to be able to interfere with that light, and the only way you can do that is if you have some sort of mass. So that's an obvious problem, and I was aware of that a long time ago. So what I've been doing with the Kinect on Paranormal Investigations is I've been, well, let me get back to the interference with the light. The way light is interfered with is like I'd mentioned, emissions. Emissions is like the light energy that is emitted from a shaped light bulb. Okay, that's emission, or a regular light bulb for that matter. Now, reflection occurs when the light waves bounce back from a surface that they can't pass through, you know, especially something like a mirror. Refraction is light bending, like through, if you look at if you put a straw in a glass of water, how it looks like the straw bends. Okay, that's refraction. And diffraction is like a CD reflecting rainbow colors, or even a hologram is diffraction. Now, translucent matter, like a piece of plexiglass or something, the light passes through it, but it scatters as it's leaving. So that's another form of diffraction. Now getting back to the Kinect and you know, the energy being able to interact with the light to cause the algorithm to draw a stick figure locked onto whatever. Excuse me. One of the things that I like to do is I like to find other tools that I can use to correlate. Now I'll go back a little bit and how my thought process with this Kinect worked. For a long time I was trying to figure out a way to improve the Kinect mechanically, to get it to do something that I wanted it to do that I knew it wasn't able to do. Like, for instance, the biggest thing is, another theory or another hypothesis in the paranormal research is that ghosts or spirits can manifest themselves in a form of a mass, or excuse me, of a mist or a fog or something like that. There again, the Kinect's not going to see that. The light's going to pass through it. It may be weaker, but it's not going to show up as a target because the fog and mist just doesn't have enough mass to it to bounce that signal back. And I've done this in experiments. I've used smoke from cigarettes and mist from spray guns and spray bottles and things like that, and I couldn't get it to see anything at all. So instead, a little bit later on, I decided, instead of trying to change that Kinect to make it see something that I wanted to see, I decided what I'd do is I would build something to run alongside the Kinect that would, you know, be able to see something that the Kinect doesn't see, and specifically a mist or a fog. So what I did was I built a laser scanner, a 360-degree laser scanner, and basically what you do is you got to be able to capture all of the measurements that are coming out of this Kinect. Or excuse me, you have to be able to capture all of the data points that are coming out of this 360-degree scanner, and it's scanning at an extremely high rate of speed. So I was able to use a tool called it's a data grabber, and I was able to, to log real time all of these measurements, but I couldn't do anything useful with these numbers. So then I went on to another set of software programs that takes those data points and plots them out real time on what looks like a radar screen, basically. Now this is a two-dimensional scanner, so it's not three-dimensional like the Kinect, but if there's something moving through the environment, it's going to see it, including mists and smokes. Now this infrared laser is, it's not a passive infrared laser, it's an infrared laser, and it doesn't shoot pulses, it shoots a straight beam. So it's going to see any type of fog or mist or anything like that. So I assume if I put it beside the Kinect and I run them both together on the same screen capture, that I will be able to see a verification. If something shows up on the laser scanner and does not show up on the Kinect, then I know it's some sort of mist or fog. Especially if I'm using an RGB camera along with it. So basically, here's a video of that and what the data points that are being collected and the transformation into this radar screen. We'll call that radar screen, although that's not what it is. And there'll be a short, then I'll show you what the actual scanner looks like with the two devices side by side. So here's a look at that. Okay, so that's pretty much it in a nutshell of how the Kinect works. The one thing that we always have to keep in mind is that this device was designed by Microsoft to detect and track humans, not ghosts or spirits. We're just trying to use this tool in a way that suits our needs, and I have no issues with that whatsoever, as long as the hypotheses behind what you're doing with it are in line with current hypotheses. And there again, the big elephant in the room is that this light, this infrared light and these laser pulses, these infrared pulses, don't have the ability to spot a ghost or a spirit or any kind of energy in the environment. Now what it can do is it can track things in a room that, say, maybe are being moved by something paranormal, like something falling off or something rolling or, out of the blue. But it's not going to be able to detect any kind of energy. And if it does, then we have to rethink what the paranormal consists of, because it would take some form of mass to do that. So if you have any questions or comments, you can leave it in the section below. For those of you that are listening to the podcast, if you do a YouTube search for Dover Paratech, you can watch the video and you'll be able to see the visuals that I'm showing on this video that you're not able to see, unfortunately. So please go ahead and subscribe and like the video and spread the word. Help me get this out. I'd like to get this program going weekly. Today I was actually playing around with some streaming software so I can do some live shows and have some guests on to talk about different things. So yeah, any ideas, any comments, let me know. Take care. We'll catch up with you next week. All right, good night.